stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. And what the flag is. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now, if we could observe a moment of silence for our Mayor, Mike Engel, who is no longer with us. All right, do we have any citizens' comments?
I have a question. I wanted to ask if we would have the blessing to put the City of Kenyon logo on the funeral pamphlets,
Would that be all right?
if that would be okay to do.
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Oh, I should probably say, my name is Rick Nielsen, and I'm the acting mayor, temporary.
Might ask for everybody present to mention,
Pardon?
Mike already mentioned who was all here to, the council members.
Yes, okay. Scott Briggs is here, Joe Ryan is here, our city administrator, Mark Balsam is here, Dan Rexiger, John, Doug, and myself, and I've already introduced myself. Okay, next we go to adopting the agenda. There's going to be some fumbling tonight since I've never done this before.
So, Acting Mayor, one thing I'd like to add to the agenda, under new business would be, let's see, what do we have? It would be under, I guess, E, and that would be resignation of police officer and authorization to advertise, and that would be Amy Redding to replace her. She resigned today. So that way we can get, if we can get authorization to advertise, then we can get a jump on that. So.
Any other changes?
Nope.
I'll move approval of the amended agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Moving on to the consent agenda. Does everybody consent? Any changes? Anything that people withheld?
Make the motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any presentations? Moving on to engineering, business park development updates.
Good evening, Council. Thank you. In your packet is a memo with updates on the current projects we have going on in the city. The first one, the business park development. As you know, you've authorized us to do the work on both the general development plan and then subsequent to that, the preparation of the preliminary and final platting. We're in the midst of the general development plan right now. In the last month, we've been making progress on that, and we have met now with MnDOT to talk about access off of the county highway, the state highway. We've also had a meeting, staff from Bolton and Mink, along with Wayne and Randy from the city, met with the county engineer to look at issues along County Road 12, access, drainage, those types of things. Overall, the meeting went well. It seems like the county is not going to have any major concerns or issues with the project, so we just got to work through all the requirements and as part of the development plan. So over the month of July here, we'll continue working on the development plan and hopefully have that ready for your review at the next meeting in August.
Second Street sanitary sewer improvements.
The Second Street sewer project is coming along very well. We had, as you know, we've awarded the contract to the firm of Raw Construction, R-A-W Construction. We had a pre-construction meeting with them this afternoon and with city staff here at City Hall. Went over all of the things for the project to get ready for the construction. They're a little behind schedule on their current projects because of the rain that's been happening so far this year, so they've submitted a revised schedule. The revised schedule, they would start work, right now they're proposing to start work on August 26th, which is that Monday, and they would still be complete by the specified completion date of September 13th. So originally in the contract we had set up, we had two completion dates, a substantial completion of August 30th and final completion of September 13th. They've asked us if we can just push the substantial completion date back to September 13th date and just have one completion date because of the revised schedule that we've got. So we told them, we reviewed that with the city, and it shouldn't cause any problems as long as they can still be done by September 13th. And the schedule they provided today shows that they can do that. And in fact, they kind of hedged their bets a little bit today and said they may be able to come in and start work on August 19th, but they just didn't want to promise that at this point. But the schedule shows they can meet the 13th, and it shouldn't cause any adverse effects on the project. So what we'll do is put together a change order to the contract, and it'll just simply revise the substantial completion date to coincide with the final completion date of September 13th. And it'll have $0 effect on the contract. And because we are starting at the end of August with the construction, that change order can come to you at your meeting on August, I think it'll be August 13th. And we can approve the change order then, it'll still take effect then, and be just fine. So everything's good with the schedule for the construction. We also have a meeting coming up next Monday, July 15th from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. here at City Hall for the businesses along 2nd Street so that they can come. It's going to be an open house type format, so we'll have information on the project. They can come in, ask questions. It'll be an informal setting where we can just have conversations with any of those business owners that choose to attend. They'll get information about the scope of the project, where we're going to have excavations, when we might have to interrupt sewer and water services, and for what types of durations, and how they'll be notified and communicated with during the project. So mailings have gone out to all the businesses along 2nd Street to notify them of that meeting on the 15th, and we'll have staff here, and the city will have staff here. And as I said, it'll just be an informal open house type setting. And a copy of the meeting notice was provided in your packets for that meeting on the 15th.
So the good news is there's no disruption to Rose Fest.
Correct.
Bad news is it gets into the first 2 weeks of school for the buses. So will that affect anything?
It shouldn't. I mean, we've got specified detour routes in 3 phases for the construction, and it's all been reviewed by MnDOT because it affects the trunk highways. So we've got well-defined routes for the traffic to come from all directions and to detour around the construction zone while it's under construction.
Okay, any other discussions?
Was there anything in there mentioned about, since there's a rain delay, that if they, maybe possibly wind up after the completion date in September?
We've told them in very clear terms that because they've asked for this adjustment to the schedule, and the city is going to be accommodating to that this is going to be their only grace period. So that once we approve the substantial completion date, moving back to the September 13th date to coincide with that final completion date, there will be no more extensions given. So they will have to find a way to get it done by then, and if it goes over that, we will be assigning damages per the contract.
And they're aware of that?
They've stated they understood that, and they're willing to sign the change order to that effect.
Okay.
They quite frankly said that they think the project will go, whether cooperating, of course, the project can be done in a very short time frame. So they think if they start the 26th, they'll actually get done in advance of the completion date. So that remains to be seen. But we've communicated as well as we can, and then some things, sometimes you have to let them do their part of the project, which is to do the construction and see if they can perform to the way they said they can. So that'll be the next phase of the project.
Next on to Red Wing Avenue, feasibility study.
Red Wing Avenue. So since the last council meeting, we did have a work session. I believe it was June 25th. We had a work session with the city council. And it was a pretty lengthy work session. We went through a lot of detail. Primarily, we covered the scope of work, right? The investigation of the existing conditions, identifying all the recommended improvements, going through how that would all lay out in the project area, all the way from 2nd Street down to the south end of Red Wing Avenue. Went through the cost estimates associated with that. We had some preliminary information on assessments and on potential financing and bond sales, but we didn't really get into that night at the work session because, frankly, it was enough just to go through the recommended improvements and the costs. So we did set a second work session with the council for July 25th. I believe it's 25th, correct? George, 23rd. 23rd? 23rd. Where we'll be focusing on the financing and assessment aspects of the project. In preparation for that, we did have a conference call with the city administrator and the city attorney on July 1st to talk about costs and the assessment policy and how the assessment policy could apply to this project. Based on that conference call, we'll be doing a little more investigation and work on the numbers and preparing information for that work session coming up here in a couple of weeks. And we'll have detailed information to go through at that time. And then I know George from Northland Securities will also be at that meeting to go through the financing scenarios he's run on the different bonding options for the project.
Questions? All right, we're moving on to legal. Thank you. Welcome. Update on the transfer of ownership of the ambulance building to the city.
Yes, acting mayor and council, quick update, all documents have been drafted, it's all ready to go. The only thing that needs to occur is the EDA needs to approve the resolution. Once the resolution is approved, we can file the deed and it'll be in the new city. So it's as simple as waiting with the EDA meeting on the 23rd and we'll file it the next day. So that's as simple. No action to take, it's all ready to go.
When can they take possession then? Is that the end of July then, or at
As
that?
soon as we, as soon as we file the deed, it's in the city's name, so it'll be likely the next day, if not that same day. We'll have, everything's ready to go, and we'll file it as soon as the resolution's approved by the EDA.
And we've been working with some contractors and looking at, getting design and, getting some, I don't want to say formal plans, but, getting some design concept plan piece together. So hopefully, like by the July meeting, Chief will come back with, some more substantial information on kind of the next steps and, layout and those kind of things. So we are still kind of moving ahead with that, trying to get a plan in place to get that kind of renovated, fixed up, so it'll put some office in, so the police department can use the building. So even though the EDA technically still owns it, so that really doesn't make any difference.
Can't hurt the plan.
Yeah, exactly, and then we'll get some cost numbers put together. So.
All right. The sale of 411 bullets.
Jumping on that one likewise. Again, after your last meeting, we updated the purchase agreement. You approved everything you need to approve for that transaction. There is a final legal description coming from our surveyor, but everything is being put together. And as soon as that's done, we'll be ready to close on that one as well. So documents have been put together. Nothing further than the council to approve at this time. Everything is getting ready for closing.
And is that legal restriction have something to do with the questionable property line?
Yeah, it's to make sure the line is defined right, and we think that's taken care of. We don't think that's an issue, because we dealt with that previously when we approved the amount of subdivision. It's just making sure the legal fits exactly what's necessary, and we're getting it approved by the surveyor who's doing that. So I don't anticipate an issue with that. Should be good.
That's right.
Yeah.
Difficult to find wood these days. Discussion on transition and passing of Mike Engel.
Want to jump in?
Yep.
I'll jump in. Anytime there's a vacancy on the city council, the remaining council persons are empowered to either appoint for a certain point in time until the next election, or again, appoint until the remainder of that term is served out. If there's a situation where you have less than 2 years remaining, which is what we have right now with the mayor's seat. So, first step is to declare a vacancy. Mark and I have prepared a resolution that does that. It also notes that you, as the remaining council persons, are have the ability to appoint for that remainder of the term through 2020. And that's the step. It's not a situation where you hold an election. In fact, really the courts have said, and the AG has said in the state, that if there's less than 2 years remaining, all you do is appoint, wait till the next regular election, and then you elect the new mayor at that point in time. So you have an open seat, you declare the vacancy in the mayor's seat at this point in time. You would adopt this resolution. The resolution says that you're determining how you want to fill the appointment. That's fairly broadly wide open for you on what you want to do. Typically, most cities do some type of advertising and say, what's our interest out there? What else do you have? Because if you go through that process and you appoint one of you for that seat, you still have another opening that you're going to need another person for. So no matter how you go about it, you either appoint directly for a mayor's seat or appoint one of you, and then you'll have a council seat as well to appoint at that point in time. So that's really what the resolution you had before you, Resolution 2019-23 says. All you're doing tonight is declaring the seat vacant. Then you decide what you want to do on how you want to go about it. And if that's directing Mark to advertise, find who's interested, that's up to you for. That's typically how it's done.
Is the advertising a requirement?
It is not.
Does that have to be done tonight?
In what regards?
Appointing or anything?
No, we don't appoint tonight. You can take a reasonable amount of time to determine how you want to appoint. So no, you do not have to appoint the seat tonight. The first step really under statute is to declare a vacancy. And then the next step is, how do you want to process to find somebody? And then you would make an appointment. And whether it's a special meeting or it's your next council meeting, that's what you do.
What is a reasonable amount of time?
Yeah, I would tell you you should have an appointment ready or evaluated within a month or so.
Okay.
Yeah.
So by next meeting,
Yes, I think that would be the best way. There have been some councils that have asked that question, and really the response is, you're supposed to operate with 5 members on the council as soon as you possibly can. So I would say as soon as you possibly can, and a month would be a reasonable amount of time.
So if you did, say you did instruct me to advertise, then it would be basically, it would end, we'd say we need responses from interested persons sometime before the next council meeting, so probably within 3 weeks or so. And then from that point, you could look and see if you have other people that are interested. You could appoint somebody from your own ranks at that time, but that way it gives a little bit of time, to kind of get the word out. And then if there are people that are interested, maybe they're interested in council, so you still draw interest.
Okay.
I think that's the most common way.
We say we advertised, we get people who are interested in both mayor and council. How do we decide? Do we just get together and say, yeah, this person seems good? Or...
Well, you either do it at the next meeting, or you maybe have a special meeting. I don't know, to be honest with you, how many people, you'll really have that will you know, you may have 2 or 3 people that are interested, but,
Hopefully 100.
yeah, you know, Scott, I don't know, I
You
mean,
may not get anybody, and then you have to go.
They took a write-in to fill in a
I
council
know
seat
that.
last time, so I
You
don't,
might not
I wouldn't
get
get your
anybody.
hopes too high.
Yeah, I wouldn't either. And that's a possibility, it's a distinct possibility. The reality is, it's better if you've gone out and said, we want, who's interested? Because you know you're either appointing for the mayor or you're appointing for the council person if one of you folks is appointing as mayor. So you need somebody. And any process does that. The easiest process that I've seen cities do is tell the city administrator, advertise, they've got a vacancy, it would be for a, depending on it, it could be, at a minimum, it's going to be through the 2020 election. No matter how you look at it, for the mayor's seat or whoever's appointed, that's what it's going to be. So that's the reality. It's very easy to advertise for that. You see what engaged the interest is, and then you four have to decide. And it's up to you. There's no process. There's nothing in statute. You can talk about it. You can say, I'm nominating so-and-so. You have a vote on it. If you go to that point and there's a tie vote, the acting mayor gets to appoint at that point in time. So be aware of that. That's the way the statute, that's the one quirk of the statute. If you have a 2-2 vote and you get to that point and it's a tie, the mayor appoints. In this case, it would be the acting mayor at that point. That's the only quirk you have to be aware of. So if you're going to bring it to that vote, probably best you've all talked about it first.
And in the advertisement, you also have the qualifications.
the only qualification is that you're 18 years old and you're a resident of the city.
Pardon?
There's only 2 qualifications, that you're 18 years old and that you're a resident of the city.
And not a felon.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, that one's usually kind of goes with everything, so.
Yeah, that's correct. So, and we've had other vacancies in the last 6 years, but they were council, but the council always advertised, you know, the 30-day period. So, I mean, we've got, other similar things of procedure or whatever has been followed, but those were council seats. But, at least 1 or 2 times, I can't remember since I've been here, there's council people who either moved out of the city or resigned. I guess moved out of the city.
That was my case.
Yeah, so, anyway.
So the
Okay,
first
so
step,
we can't mandate somebody to take the job.
Yeah, they have to accept.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
AKA writing candidates. They have to accept. That's
They have to
correct.
accept. So you can appoint, but if they don't accept, they'll take the oath. No, that
Yeah.
doesn't cover something.
so, go ahead.
With a heavy heart, I'll move resolution 2019-23 declaring a vacancy in the mayor position for the city of Kenyon.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
And then as far as the next step, then do they need to pass a motion or?
I think if by consensus or motion, you direct Mark to advertise, if that's what you want to do, and that's as simple as that.
I would move that we direct the administrator to advertise the open position.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Mr. Mayor, can I have a moment? A moment, please. I just wanted to take a moment and say how Mr. Rayler is going to be big shoes to fill. He's a very small man in stature, but had a huge heart, and I think we as employees are really going to miss him. So thank you all. And I also wanted to mention that Mike's celebration of life will be taking place, the ceremony at the VFW this Saturday at noon, correct? So you can noon. So I encourage people to attend and come out. He really did so many wonderful things for our city. So thank you.
Okay. I've lost my place.
Okay, I got a question. Since we're still on this, would we have, I feel that we should have a discussion, a work session with looking at whoever applies.
Okay, so here's what I'd recommend. I would recommend you do that, and it has to be open. You can't have a closed session. Not that, you would do that anyway, but I just want to bring that up. Maybe at 6 o'clock before the next council meeting, because this will need to run a few weeks anyway, so I think that if you do it at 6 o'clock before the next council meeting, you'll have time to kind of wade through, talk about it, and then you can come back to the regular meeting and make a decision, if that's okay with everybody.
Good.
Do we have to have a motion on that or anything of the sort, or
No,
just?
that's fine. As long as Mark knows to call a special meeting for a work session, that's fine. That's typically how you direct that.
Moving on to old business then. An update on the DEPI grant, Business Park Project.
The grant is still being reviewed by DEED, but DEED has a three-step process for reviewing that, the BDPI grants. The first is internal staff review, then it goes to the Office of Management and Budget for basically encumbering the money and whatever they review. It looks to me like they are nearing the end. Now OMB is either done with it or very close, because we got a letter saying that they were not going to put a lien on the property for the business park. That it was clear of whatever that state statute was, which tells me that they're probably done reviewing it or very close and that they passed it through. Then it goes back for final review back to DEED again. So I think that's kind of where it's at now. Is maybe it's either gone back or it's close to going back. But it's encouraging. It still seems like it's moving forward. So.
And typically, how long does that third step take?
I don't know. I wasn't able to get a real good idea from CETA, the consultants working with us on this, or even from D how long it would take. But I think that it's been, it's been 3 months now since they've had it, 2.5, 3 months, and so I would be surprised if it was another at least 2 to 4 weeks.
Yeah.
But I don't know for sure. And sometimes these things will get tripped up, or somebody will be on vacation, or who knows, and it'll take longer. So,
Any other comments?
Fingers crossed.
yep,
Yeah.
correct.
Well, certainly with the timing of it, since we're not planning on doing anything until next spring, if they even come through in the next 2 or 3 months, that would be within sufficient time.
Yeah, it gets to be 18 months, or I think it's 18 months. We have to be in the ground. So yeah, I think that would work. I mean, I think we'd be okay with that. I will have to double check, but I believe that's.
So you're saying that once they approve it, we have to have started within a certain amount of time?
No, once everything gets approved, there's with any grant, there's always a time period that you have to start the work. Whether it's 12 months or 18 months.
Okay.
Yeah, there's always a window that you have to meet. You have to get started within a certain time period.
Yeah.
Forfeit the money.
Rose Fest funding request.
At the July council meeting, the Rose Fest committee, or some of the members, made a request for additional funding from the city as follows.
June.
June meeting, I'm sorry. They continued the $1,000 Rose Fest donation they had done in the past, that the city pay for the porta potties, and that there be another $2,000 donated, and they had cited Carriage and Cutter. So the council had instructed me to talk or work with Matt Bartel, the liquor store manager, and look at the porta potty situation and the cost. Now, the city received, as you guys may be aware, last month, a $1,000 donation from Bolton and Bank, which should cover most of that cost.
Now, I think it says something in here about $1,500.
Oh, that was a mistake on my part.
Oh,
Sorry.
okay.
Yeah, it was $1,000. So,
We could get some really nice ones.
yeah, no, it was
Add
1,000.
more.
So,
You didn't put another zero at the end.
15,000. Yeah, that would be.
Yes, uh-huh.
That has something explaining to
We're building the porta potty.
So, the only thing left to discuss would be the additional. They're asking for additional $2,000, and I had said in my motion, in my memo, that maybe the council could consider $1,000 donation for 2019. The funds could come out of, there's several places in the budget, miscellaneous, or other areas of the budget. I mean, we can figure that out, but, so that would be the only thing left to talk about would be if the council would want to donate any additional money toward that, so.
So then, in other words, if I'm correct, the $1,000 that originally was for the porta potties by the city donated, now will be taken care of by Bolton and Mank.
Yeah.
So that's frees up $1,000, is that correct?
I don't know if the city paid for those in the past. I think that that came from Rose Fest, from money they raised or whatever. So I don't think the city paid for those directly, the porta potties. That's why they came to ask for the city to pay for that.
I think that's right. I think that's the way Terry explained it, was that they had paid, the Rose Fest committee had paid for the porta potties.
Yeah, the city didn't pay those directly.
Okay, but they were located over here by the Muni.
No,
Okay,
they were on city property. That's
yeah,
correct.
okay.
And that's why it defaulted to could the muni pay for that. But it actually came from Rose Fest funds, so the Rose Fest committee.
So that 1,000 is still in circulation, is that correct? Available funds?
The $1,000 that I'm referring to would be additional. I mean, the city donated $1,000 in the past. This would be an additional $1,000 on top of that, so it would be $2,000 total.
Okay, that's what I want.
Yeah,
Okay.
it'd be $2,000 total.
Now, when we discussed it last month, there was some question as to them coming forward with a reason for the request. At that time, it was an additional $2,000.
Yeah, and I haven't gotten anything on that, so that's one of the reasons I kind of trimmed that down a little bit, because I haven't gotten anything specific.
Personally, I would like to go ahead and grant them the funds with the stipulation that they come up with some sort of expense report
Okay.
of where the money went to, so that in the next year, we could decide if that was enough or if we had to even budget more.
Okay,
Because I think
that's reasonable.
Rose Fest being such a big draw, it's worthwhile supporting.
Yeah.
So in essence, they've already got 1,000 that was in our budget. They're getting, there's been a donation for 1,000. And then if we grant another 1,000, you're actually getting 3,000.
There's a $1,000 Rose Fest donation. Then the city, there'd be an additional $1,000. So basically, it would be $2,000. In this memo, there's like before and after. So, or what we currently do, and then what more or less what I'd recommend. So, what we did before was continue. Well, basically, the second paragraph's phrase you're going to talk about that is continue the $1,000 Rose Fest donation, and then consider additional $1,000 donation. That's it. The porta potty would come from the donation from Bolton Bank.
So if in the past the porta potty was being paid for by the liquor store, and they would now be foregoing that expense, then in effect, we're giving the
I don't
liquor
think
store
it was.
$1,000.
It was being paid for by the committee.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's
It
correct.
wasn't being paid for by the community. That's what they
There's some
were.
discussion of.
That's where
the
what
liquor
we were
store
discussing
paying
was
for it.
having the community pay that, but the community wasn't paying that in the past out of their budget. So,
A little misleading at the moment on that, but you're correct. So in other words, what we're looking at is adding a donation of $1,000.
and then Richard would like documented, how they spent the.
Yes, and also to document their expenses, how the money was spent.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about to the penny, but.
Yeah, but I mean, general, yeah,
But
okay.
in the end, they're getting 3,000, correct?
The
They're getting $2,000 in funding.
From the
We're
city.
taking $1,000
Yeah.
worth of liability away from the
Yep,
porta
yep.
potties.
Yeah.
That's correct. If you include both in the mixed donation, it's 3,000.
Yes.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's
I met with representatives of the committee and you know, like I explained to them, I go, the concern I have is if it's not budgeted, I don't like the idea of spending outside of a budget.
Here's a pile of money and do with what you want.
Yeah, because things come up, you know, we had the, what was it with the pool, the heater, that came up unexpected. You know, we have things that come up. What I recommended to them was to come to, when we start working on the budget for next year, and then we can put that in, for what they need. And, you know, I'm very supportive of that. You know, if Mark, if you can find it, if the money's there, yeah, I'm not opposed to it, but I just don't like the idea of having to, that line, we'll find the money someplace. It can get a household in trouble, it can get government in trouble. I don't like that as a practice. And,
Yeah, if it was a bigger amount, we wouldn't approach it that way. You know? But being that it's, you know, $1,000, but I understand what you're saying.
I'd overlook it this time, but have them bring it forth at budget time.
Yeah, and if they want 2,000 more, make that request and we try to target it.
And the operative word there is budget time and not waiting until a month or two before.
Yeah.
yeah, and that's what I expressed that message to them. I think they were looking forward to that, coming in and making that request. And yeah, it just, you know, if we start having a dozen of these pop up where, well, you know, it's important, we need money, and it's not in the budget, we're on the line for it at the end of the day, you know, and that I just don't like that line, we'll find the money somewhere. But if you feel comfortable with it, as Councilor Hankey said, you know, we can overlook it, but then they need to get into the budget workshop this fall.
We could talk about it too, you know, whether it's during the budget, where that money came from, specifically the budget too. So, if you guys would like.
So we need a motion on
Yeah,
that then?
yeah.
Okay. Well, I'll make the motion then, and I'll read it off of this way. I'll use your recommendation, Mark. I recommend the council consider and continue a $1,000 Rose Fest donation. Also, as an add-on, that they determine, show us what they use the money for expenses, and also, I guess add to it, consideration of bringing up their budget at budget time, meaning bringing it in for the budget.
And that's also an additional $1,000, correct?
Yes, there will be a total of $2,000.
Well, I'll second that then. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Special thank you to Bolton and Mink again.
Yeah, thank you, Joe.
Yes.
Yes, certainly.
You get 2 free dance tickets.
You get to use whichever one you want.
All right, new business, Public Works Department resignation.
Peter Kerr resigned effective July 26th. We are requesting that his resignation be accepted and that rehiring the position be authorized. A copy of the ad is in the meeting packet. So.
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
lease of the Ford F-150 pickup. And there's a resolution involved.
So, in the budget, we had put, we put money in the budget, in the 2018 budget for, based on what I'm going to say is a 4-year lease for a Ford F-150 based on a cost probably in the low 30s, so there's probably maybe about $6,000 that was put in there. The actual quote that we got based on state bid from Milo Peterson Ford was $29,411.65. So what I'm asking approval for is to set up a 4-year lease through Kinetic and through the Security State Bank of Kenyon. And the parameters of the lease are in the packet, or in the summary from Kinetic Leasing. So I don't know if there's any questions on that.
Doug raised a question earlier. Yes?
Yes, I do have a couple of questions on this one. First of all, I am not saying that the city does not need the pickup. I know that for sure on that part of it. I also understand the part of it that we should get into some kind of a rotation basis. The questions that I have is, one, there's, I believe, if I'm correct, the pickup is already being used. Is that correct? Okay. Number two is, who authorized that to be brought forward? And basically, I always understood, yes, it's in the budget, but it still needs an approval. And we're approving something that is already on the streets. I don't quite understand that. My other part of it is here. I know that money is hard to come by, but I'm looking at a lease, and I believe if I am correct, we're spending over $3,000 in payments when basically I understand again the money is available now that was put into the budget. I'm even wondering also, why does it go directly to Peterson Ford, even though this is a state contract?
Yeah, state contract price.
Where are we getting bids from? We only got from one. Apparently we went on and looked at paperwork in the past and told Milo Peterson, or I should say Peterson, get the truck. Where's our local bids coming from? We've bid in the past from a Chevrolet dealer, we've GMC, we've done Dodge and all this here. And I think we should go back to that again and do it the proper way. And I also look at it this way. I'd like to see all of these vehicles that have been bought. We need some donation back to the city again from some of these people that businesses that we have bought from. So my question is this here. I think it was kind of a slap in the face of the council that you went out and bought this truck and got it, and we weren't even asked. That's the part that's upsetting to me.
So it was in the budget, Wayne.
I believe we did it in January, because the truck's been on order for months. Because the way the state bid works is it's Ford, Chevy, Dodge, whatever flavor you have. The state negotiates prices with all manufacturers, and if I was to buy it across the street or in the next town over, it's the same price. So that's why Ford has to discount the truck sale to us via the state contract. It's kind of like when we bought the dump truck through Freightliner.
It's a huge benefit that we get to jump on that state bid.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did that at the county too. Yeah, that you're not gonna get much better than that.
Oh, I'm in agreement with that part of it, but I'm just saying, where are the rest of the bids so we could look at it, for one thing?
Well, when you buy off-state, and I was going to look back here at the minutes, when you buy off-state bid, you don't, I mean, we can get, like I told you when you called me about this, we can get quotes from either the State Department of Administration website what the pricing is, because, the state pricing is set. So we can get, like 3 different quotes from, Dodge, Ram, Ford, and Chevrolet, or GMC. I guess there's 4 of them. And we did that, I want to say 2 or 3 years ago. And at that time, basically Ford came in price-wise better, and the consensus at that time of the council was, to try to buy from, local, from Milo Peterson. So when we got this quote, we went to Milo Peterson, and this is what I was going to look at the minutes to see if this came in January, and the council approved it at that.
I believe it did.
At that time, because then it was already approved.
Okay.
So I guess that's what I would have to look back.
And the one thing you need to know is that state bid contract, the state has gone out and done the bids. The whole point, and I think this is what Dan's getting at, the city has the benefit of not having the cost of going out and evaluating and doing the bids because the state's already done it with all these manufacturers. So you've already had it bid. You've just selected the vehicle that has happened to be Ford, and it's that price. The bids have already occurred.
And we're getting the benefit because they're giving the state the lowest bid possible because of the magnitude of the amount of vehicles they're going to sell to them.
Yeah.
So we just happen to, it's a huge benefit for a small county or a small town to be able to jump on that state bid because we're getting that low bid because of the amount of equipment they're going to sell to the state. They're competitive that way.
The state bid was on the lawnmowers we purchased, those are all been state bid pricing. Like the skid loader, that was state bid pricing. Even a lot of the tools like from steel, we get a significant discount on that because of state bid pricing.
I'm buying all of this here, but I'd like to see exactly the bids. I got one from Ford, but when we did the lawnmowers, we had a couple of different bids to look at. I don't know, let's put it this way, did Chevrolet, we'll use that one, or Dodge, did they come in at the same penny for the same vehicle? That's what I want to know.
Honestly, I never pursued it.
The what?
I never pursued Chevy or Dodge. I didn't leave town for a truck deal.
So then we don't know for sure if we got the bottom. I'm not, accusing you. I'm just saying this here. Bring it so that we have more information. That's all I'm saying. And then we can choose off of it.
Now, I know in the past, we have gotten bids, and I cannot remember if they were new vehicles or they were a special vehicle or whatever, and we have gotten the lowest bid from Owatonna. And we have gone back to Milo and said, can you beat this bid? And Milo said, okay, we'll beat it by $1,000. We never went back to the Owatonna people to give them the same chance. So at that point, I think it's a bit unfair that we would do something like that. And the other thing, I'm going to keep harping on it forever, but I think it's worthwhile looking into a used vehicle, whether it's 2 years old or 4 years old or what. I've had several people ask me, how come Kenyon always has to have a brand new vehicle every year or wherever we buy them? Why can't we buy used? How many people out there buy used? How much do you save by buying a used vehicle over driving it off the lot and it having cost you several $1,000s the first mile you put on it? Those are my comments. I have no answers.
We've talked about the used, when it comes to pickups specifically, and there isn't a very good market for 2 or 3 year old pickups. The cost is actually higher than what we get a new one for. So we've talked about that other.
As Doug was saying, we've never seen any research on that. We've never seen anything to back that up.
I'd have to look back. There may,
When we bought the 1 ton, we did some comparisons on used trucks versus brand new. And the brand new state bid price blew the doors off the used market stuff.
Okay,
It's such a
because
significant
it's going to
savings.
the state.
Yes.
Yeah, as opposed to there's no state for used vehicles.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
And not only that, but I would say the city gets, meaning the vehicle lives a pretty hard life. You know, I mean, people jump in, employees are in and out, and it's doing this and that, where somebody that has it themselves probably take a little more care of it. So I'm in favor, Richard, of buying new. I do feel that way. But I just like to compare apples to apples and oranges to oranges. That's all that I'd like laid out in front of me so I can make a decision on it instead of saying, okay, we bought a Ford and, well, didn't you look at something else? No, we didn't. I want to be able to say, yes, we did look at it. That's my only complaint. The other one that I have is leases to me, and again, my opinion, is for people that do not have the finances to buy it outright. But $3,000, I figure, is quite a sum of money. If it's in the budget, which I understand it is, I kind of feel that we should save the $3,000 and pay for it outright.
Well, if you want to just approve it outright purchase, we would just take what's in the budget and the rest we'll just take out of Public Works Capital Fund. What we had put in the fund, and we talked about this at least the last couple of budget cycles, was trying to lease police vehicles and other city vehicles so that they could be cycled more often. And so, but we would have the funds, within capital to pay for this up front. That's fine. It's not a big deal. So, but I would just need a motion one way or another with this. So, and yeah, next time we get a vehicle, and I had mentioned to Doug that it would be next year when we look at police vehicles again. We'll get pricing from all three, and I guess we can try and see what's out there in the used market too. But we'll get pricing from all three manufacturers for some different options. That's fine. Yeah. I mean, usually you can get them all right off of their website, off the Department of Administration website. So, and the thing is, the last couple times the city purchased vehicles, it was pretty strong that, and Fred and Mike, unfortunately neither one is here now, but they were very, adamant that we try to stay local as much as we can. So, it's more of a past practice thing. It's not like a deliberate, we're trying to pull a fast one over you or anything like that. But anyway,
Well, I agree with that.
That's my answer to that.
I agree with that, and for the other reason too is if it has to go into shop, if we're driving over to Owatonna, we got 2 workers on the payroll, driving it over to Owatonna, dropping it off, coming back, then having to go pick it up. That's lost time. That could be used working for the city, running around, taking vehicles to Rochester or Owatonna or wherever we're going to go. You look at that price. That's a state bid price, and we can look at what GM and Dodge are doing, but I'm not sure we're gonna get much out of it. But we can certainly look at the numbers. But I agree with those gentlemen that if we can buy locally, that it makes sense not only to help the business, but also if it has to go into the shop, it's a 2-minute drive versus a half-hour drive.
As a former business owner in town, I would fully agree with trying to buy local. 100%.
Could I add one thing on the lease? This is a lease purchase under state law, which is very different for a municipality than a general lease, going in and leasing a vehicle. The city has the ability to walk away from this on any annual payment and say, we don't want the truck anymore. And that's the way the contracts are. So it's a little bit different than buying into a lease and saying we're paying a lease term in 5 years. If in 2 years the city doesn't want, you can walk away from it. It's a very different type of lease. That's the benefit of the lease purchase system for municipalities in the city. So there is a reason cities do that.
I guess my only thought on the buying locally is that we're doing them a favor they should return the favor and not try to gouge, which I think in some cases has happened.
Like with, you mean with service?
With service, with price, whatever.
Well, the price is, state contract price is set, so they really can't gouge us that way. I mean, that's the same price that any other agency would pay if they buy a Ford F-150 four-wheel drive, so. But
Okay, lease. And
So it comes
since
down-
it's already happened, what do we do?
Well, the question that, I guess the next part of it hanging in there is, do we want to lease it, or are we gonna buy it outright? And that's up to the vote here.
And have we already signed the lease agreement, in which case?
we haven't signed it yet.
No, all right.
No, and you lease it, the way it is set up, it's financing for it, it's a lease, you get the end of the lease, you pay $1 and have the vehicle. Or anytime during any of those years, you can walk away. And you don't have like a normal lease where you gotta buy up and do things and do something. That can't happen under state law. So if you bought it for 1 year and you say, we don't want it anymore, you can walk away.
So if Wayne starts to notice that the truck has got some hiccups and kinks to it, we can walk
It's not under
away.
warranty, yeah, that's a possibility.
Mhm.
So we have not yet paid a penny?
No.
Okay.
So, all right, you just have to either approve purchase or approve lease, what I would call lease purchase of.
It's really a deferred payment system. It's not really works, but it's called a lease purchase under state statute.
Now, this lease isn't, the first payment isn't due until actually 2020. So,
Further comments?
Well,
Buy or lease?
the lease does give us almost some form of insurance, basically. I agree. I don't know if the insurance is worth 3,000 or whatever.
So I'm certainly willing to entertain a motion, whatever it might be. I think. And yet nobody's saying anything.
Well, let's put it to a vote. I would move that we go ahead with Resolution 2019-22.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm opposed.
so you need to do a roll call.
All right. In any particular order?
No, probably not.
Okay, we'll start down at the end. Dan?
Yes.
Yes.
No.
Yes. All right, I'm going to step back to see, because there are things that were not covered in our Rose Fest. And that is the street dance permit, the parade permit, the street closures, the sidewalk vendors, and the 5th annual Kenyon Fire Department 5K run. And I would hope that we could approve all of those with one motion. Is that possible?
I'll make that motion then.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Approve hiring of the municipal store employee.
Liquor store manager Matt Bartel seeking council approval to hire Doug Carson